Hello and welcome to lesson number 4, where you'll learn about the first composite data type in JavaScript, which is arrays. Now, an array is basically a list of values. And the way you can declare one is simply var, let's call it list equals, and we'll use square brackets, and we can put in the list of values. For example, I can say John, Marie, and we separate these by commas, and Sander. Well, I can think of a better name there. So this is an array which has 3 string items, but you're not limited to string items. You can have an array of booleans or an array of numbers, or you can mix and match. So for example, I can add another one here that says 32. Or I can put another one here that says false, right? So this is a valid array. Now, this is the first method of declaring an array. You can also declare an array like this. So for example, list2 equals this. This is an empty array, but it's an array nonetheless. Or let's call this list3 equals new array. And here you can also specify its content. So for example, 12 and false. This is a valid syntax. Now, this is how you declare an array. But how do you access it? Well, just like you would access any normal variable. So if I go back in here and I say, for example, list, it's going to give me my array. John, Marie, Sander, 32, and false. Or list2, it's going to give me an empty array. Or list3, it's going to give me the third array that we've just created. Now, this will give you the entire array, but what if you want to access a specific element from that array? Well, to do that, you would say list, you open up square brackets, and you specify a number from 0 to whatever you want, basically. Arrays are zero-based index, which means the first item sits on position 0. The second item sits on position 1, and so on and so forth. So if I say list 0, it's going to give me John. If I say list 2, it's going to give me the third item, which is Sander. If I say list 5, it's going to give me undefined. Now, why is it giving me undefined? Well, because our array has 5 elements. So its element count only goes up to 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. 5 items. So if I specify an index, this is what it's called, if I specify an index that's larger than the length of the array, it's going to give me undefined. But if I say list 4, it's going to give me the item on the 5th position. Now, the way to access these arrays is the same regardless of how you define them in the first place, either using the this syntax or using the new array syntax. Now, arrays have properties and they have methods. Properties, we're only going to talk about one, and that is length. And the length property gives you the number of items from that array. The way to access that property is with the array name. In our case, let's do list dot length. And list.length is going to give me 5 because I have 5 items. List2.length is going to give me 0 because it's an empty array. And list3.length is going to give me 2 because we have 2 items in that array. A very simple property that you can use to find the number of items in an array. Now, let's move on to the methods because these are a bit more interesting. The methods we're going to be talking are push, pop, shift, unshift, and index of. The push method will add an item to the end of an array. So I have my list array here, and if I want to add another item, I can just say list.push, and then in parentheses, I'm going to put my item, and that can be anything, boolean, number, null, string, whatever. So I'm just going to put a string, and I'm going to say hi. So now it gives me the new length of my array, and if I do list again, I get the updated array. So that's push. Pop will actually remove an item from the end of the array. So I can say list.pop, make sure you use parentheses because this is a method. And that gave me the item that was removed from my list. So if I redo, you'll find that we now have an array with just 5 items. The third method is called shift, and it's used to remove an item from the front or the start of an array. So if we do list shift, it removed John. As you can see, John is now gone. Now to add to the front of an array, you would use unshift. So list unshift, I'm going to add 10 here. Yeah, so now list is this bit. Finally, index of is used to find the index of a specific item in an array. So let's say, for example, that I want to find the position of the number 32 in my array. So I can do list index of 32. And that gives me 3, right? So we have 0, 1, 2, and 3. But if I do index of this bit, it actually tells me that it's not defined, but if I do index of 32, 32, it gives me -1. And this is the value that's returned in case that item is not found in the array. And that's pretty much it for arrays. Now, coming up, we'll talk about the second composite data type, which is objects. See you there.